Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Strategic Business Growth Multiplier. It's really good to see you. Thank you for hanging around the couple extra minutes. I had to reboot my computer once again just to make sure I had a really good, solid beginning. And of course, there's updates I had to install. There it is. I never seem to get this started on time, but it's really good to see you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. Hello, I've got, is that Nadira? Hello, Nadira. Very good to see you. Nadira Shakir. Love that name. Please, Nadira, let me know where you're from and what kind of business that you're in. And also, Katura, hello. Katura Stewart. It's very good to see you. And Yokalang Iyer. Sorry if I'm messing that up. Hello, it's really good to see you. And yes, it's good to see you as well. So please let me know. Um, let's see. So let me know where you're at and what kind of work that you're in. Um, Let me know. Okay, perfect. There we go. And Nadira has got Brampton, Ontario. Very good. Excellent. Good to see you. And we've got a few people on Facebook. We've got a couple people on LinkedIn, several on YouTube already. It's really good to see you guys. Usually the YouTube folks come in a little bit later because it takes a while for YouTube to let everybody know that we're out here. And you are Couture. You're in Texas, and you're doing senior care. Perfect, excellent. I love what they're doing in the senior care industry right now. They're actually taking much better care of people than they were. Not great, but better. I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. Business banking relationship manager for WAFD Bank at Everett, Washington. Okay, very good. Oh, Washington Federal, maybe. Okay, excellent. I was in banking for a number of years, and really liked the banking world. I really did enjoy it, but I had aspirations for things more entrepreneurial. But I was an underwriter for a while. I was a teller for a while. I did all sorts of different stuff. Did loan review. Did all sorts of aspects of banking. So it's good to have you here. Okay, so if you're just joining us, please let me know who you are and where you're from. We are going to get right into it. We have got a lot of things to cover, and I just want to let you know there's a couple things we're talking about when we get into the concept and in context of business growth. First of all, there's a couple of truths that I need to tell you, and some of you, it sounds like you're looking to build your businesses. Looks like you're looking to grow your businesses. Maybe you're looking to start a business. If that is the case, I just let you know that there's just a couple of ground rules that I want to tell you up front, and some things that you may not necessarily want to hear because that's not really people are just not telling the truth out there. They're more interested in getting your money. They're more interested in telling you things like, "Oh, you can do it. All you got to do is believe," which certainly a positive attitude certainly helps, but there are certain economics to certain businesses that just aren't there. And one of the things that I want to tell you right now is that if you want to grow or if you want to scale your business, and again, growth and scale are not the same things. Growth is a little bit more linear, where scale is more exponential. And I just want to let you know that if you're wanting to grow your business or even scale your business, that not every business is scalable and that you cannot scale a broken business model. You might be able to grow a broken business model to a certain point, but you cannot scale it. And the difference in that, and the reason why I'm telling you this right out of the gate, that not all businesses are scalable, is because I'm not going to come on here and blow sunshine up your butt and tell you like, oh, all you got to do is believe and you just follow this formula. However, it is important that you recognize that just because a business isn't scalable doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it. I know a lot of people who make really good livings in what they do, even though the business that they're in isn't scalable. This business right here isn't particularly scalable. Like what I'm doing as a strategist, it's just me. I don't have any interest in hiring or training or bringing on other strategists and then having them do strategy work for me, and I'm kind of the grand poobah. Like I don't really have any interest in that. I just do this because I truly enjoy it. However, I also wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't have other businesses that paid and supplied money for my income and for my lifestyle. Most of my money comes in through real estate. So I'm just letting you know that this is how, like for me, I really enjoy this business, but I do make a pretty good living on this, even if it's not necessarily, I mean, it will definitely grow. But if I was looking to scale it where I was going to step away from it, let's face it, if I don't do this, there's no one else that does this. And that's okay. That's all right. I'm not suggesting that that is a bad business model, but I just want you to understand right out of the gate that that is not every business is scalable. And that is why, because it just for me to hire and find my replacement is not really what I'm looking to do. So I'm just letting you know, could it be scalable? Sure. If I wanted to hire and change and make that into a growth model and a growth engine, I could do that. But I just want to let you know, and the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because I don't want you getting to the end and going, well, I want to apply this to my business, but I don't really necessarily know how. One of the things that I will let you know is there are plenty of people who are doing businesses that are not scalable, but they're using that as a lifeboat to get to where they want to go, so they can build a business that is scalable. For example, I'll give you a quick example. Like this is based on the barriers to entry, right? So a barrier to entry in business is where it would be like a license or high capital investment, right? Like us getting into um, buying Boeing 747s. There's a lot of capital that's involved in something like that, right? Or building a 100 floor skyscraper, right? There's lots of capital involved in that. Most people can't get into that because there's a barrier to entry related around specifically around capital. But if you and I and everybody on this call today were going to get into the cleaning business, there's not really a big barrier to entry in the cleaning business, right? In fact, most of us before the end of the next 20 minutes, one of us on here probably could have a website up and running. Someone else could probably have business cards ordered for us. Someone else could probably run out to the store and buy a bunch of mops and buckets, right? And we're in business. And we might even have some signs, maybe some advertising even running, okay? That's what I'm saying. Within minutes, all of us could be in the cleaning business. Again, I'm not suggesting that the cleaning business is a bad business to be in. I'm just letting you know it's not. It can be really tough to scale. There's not saying that you can't scale it or grow it. I'm just saying it can be tough to scale. So that's and you have to be mindful of the business model that you're building. So let's get into this. So who is this specifically for? I want you to understand right now, right out of the gate, that this is designed for businesses with employees or who plan to have employees. If you don't plan to have employees, that's okay. There's still going to be plenty of things that you will learn today. But I want you to understand that bringing others into your business is what has a scaling effect on your business. And I will tell you that if you are fighting this, like I fought this for a really long time, and we got Ingrid from YouTube saying hello. Really good to see you. Glad you could join us today. So bringing other people into your business is what has that scaling effect. That's where you're having the people that are really now you're not just doing one thing at a time. Now you can have multiple things being done at a time because you're magnifying your effort. You're bringing other people in. You're obviously hopefully charging more than what you're paying these guys. Generally 3 to 4 times labor is the minimum. So whatever you're paying them for labor, you're charging at least 3 to 4 times more than that. And that's generally the rule of thumb. Again, every business is a little bit different, but that's generally where I've seen where businesses start making money. However, the businesses that make real money are the ones that are charging anywhere from 5 to 10 times labor. So again, you're paying someone $10 an hour, you're charging $50 to $60 an hour based on that, something along those lines. So I'm just saying that's what has the scaling effect on a business is when you're bringing others into the business. So now you can be focusing on the higher dollar and higher level activities. Okay. So later we're going to be talking about growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. But again, this is about being strategic. This is the strategic business growth multiplier, and you're looking to grow and scale your business. And also look, who else could this be for? If you're frustrated with your results, if you feel like, man, no matter what it is that I'm doing, I'm just not getting the results that I want, or you feel like you should be much further along than you are. What about for those of you who maybe feel like all you do is obsess and think about your business? And I'm letting you know, even though it's like, man, it's all I think about. It's I love it. Okay, great. But you love it until you don't. And it's just one of those things that your business just doesn't love you back as much as you love it. And don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed business. I've also absolutely hated it. And there's just periods of time where I felt like, oh my gosh, there's got to be something more than just what I'm doing here. There's got to be more than just this. So I'm just letting you know that there is more to this. And this is about taking a strategic approach to managing both your life and your business. So you're going to walk out of this webinar by the end, and you're going to be able to have a full and complete framework of how to approach not just your business, but also your life. And you might be thinking, wow, that is a really tall order. Yes, it would be. However, I've literally written the book on that. And that is The Time Wealthy Advantage. That's the book that's over my shoulder. If you're interested in getting, I'm not here to promote the book. If you're interested in getting a copy for it, you can copy of it. You can buy it on Amazon. If you're inside the United States, you can go to strategicboardroom.com and you will have no trouble finding it there. But that's probably the best deal I can get for you. I can sign it and send it to you as well if you're interested. But these are all of the books that I have written and published last year. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is not necessarily so, again, I'm trying to promote this, but think about it. The Time Wealthy Advantage is about a 300-page book. It literally walks business owners from start to end through what I'm going to talk about is the Viper framework. We're going to get into the Viper framework, not fully, but you're going to get a pretty good understanding of what that is by the end of the webinar here. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because writing and editing and publishing and narrating, because it's also on Audible, in a 300-page book, which basically walks people through the vision, the infrastructure, the process, the execution, the reporting, the 4 core functions of business, and all of the different things that go into writing and publishing a book. I wouldn't be able to do that if I did not control my time. There's no way I would be able to do that. And I will also tell you that if I didn't have complete total control over my calendar, which by the way, it is called the Time Wealthy Advantage for a reason, because you have an advantage when you control your time. When those people who have most control over their time, those people who mostly control their calendar have the most ability to do what they want in life, in all aspects of life. And I'll tell you this, there's no point in making piles of money if you have to take all of your waking hours to do it. It sucks. And ask me how I know. I spent most of my 20s, all of my 30s, and a good chunk of my 40s chasing that dragon. And I'm telling you, I was making pretty decent money, but I was spending all of my waking hours doing it, and I couldn't spend it. And you're like, well, that's a good problem to have. No, it's not. Because then when the money goes away, then you're wondering what you were doing it all for. And that's exactly what happened to me. Going into 2009, I had about $6.5 million worth of real estate that I had built in this portfolio, and it was gone in about 8 months because things turned against me. And again, it's all my fault. I'm not saying that to get pity or anything like that, but I'm just letting you know that when you hitch your wagon to that, and that's the thing that goes away, it's just I just look back at the wreckage of my life, and I'm like, what did I spend the last 10 to 15 years building? So again, there's no point in doing all this if it takes all of your waking hours to doing it. So what do I do? What do I spend my time? At the jumpy place. I'm telling you, kids should name everything. So we have a 3.5-year-old daughter, we have a 17-year-old daughter, and we have a 20-year-old son, 17-year-old son, and a 3.5-year-old daughter. Yes, I'm 53. And you're like, wow, you did not do the math on that. No, I did not. And I have parts of me that ache because she likes to go to the jumpy place all the time, and it's literally the most exhausting thing ever to do, no matter what your age, unless you're her age. So she likes to lay on it and basically play popcorn while I jump up and down, and she just bounces and thinks it's the most hilarious thing ever. And I'm crawling through tunnels and sliding down the slidey things, and it's interesting because I see a lot of the other parents that are there who are significantly younger than me, 15 to 20 years younger than me. And they're sitting there on their phones and they're missing all of it. And I don't know what they're doing that's so important on their phones. Usually they're just jacking around on TikTok videos or whatever. Sometimes they're working. Sometimes they've got a laptop there and they're working. And meanwhile, the kids, they're just dying for their adults' attention. And that's what I get to spend my time doing now. So where it is in the middle of the day, I think it was last week, we were there at the jumpy place from 12:30 to 2, which was absolutely a blast. Or we have picnics during the week, or we go to the game place. Yes, I know this is a bowling alley, but she does not care about bowling. She cares about the games we play. The whole point here is I'm just letting you know that is what your life can be when you control your calendar. You can spend time and develop relationships on the most important things that are important to you. So that's what I want you to think about, because when you don't have a good strategy, you're much more likely to get burned out by your work, which is going to leave you uninspired. And it's hard to think of your next moves. It's really hard to be strategic when you're burned out and you're just toasted. I get that. Or if you're a couple that's in business together, you might be fighting about money all the time. Or if you have a date night once in a while, it turns into a board meeting where all you do is talk about work. Ask me how I know. So instead of reconnecting with your spouse, you spend time talking about the business, right? So does any of this sound familiar to you, or anything like this where you spend a lot of time procrastinating or seeking perfection? Like, oh, well, once that's perfect, then I will roll it out. Like, once that ad is absolutely perfect, let me tweak it a little bit more. Man, just get it out there. What about doing the unnecessary? When you know you should be making phone calls, you know you should be reaching out and doing your emails for outreach, for lead generation or whatever, but you find no, it's really important that I organize my paper clips in my desk, or hiding inactivity where you have so many things to do you don't even know what to start on first. How about hiding an inactivity, where well, you're hiding an activity is basically where you're just basically burying yourself in work so you don't deal with the things you really need to be doing. Hiding an inactivity is basically where you've got so many things to do you don't know what to start on first. Lying to yourself, telling yourself that things are better than they really are, or setting impossible standards. Yeah, once I make $500,000 a year, then I'll start to think about slowing down. Right? Meanwhile, you've never made any more than $60,000 a year. These impossible standards is again, this is all self-sabotaging behavior. And by the way, this isn't meant to be judgment. This is confession. This is all the stuff that I have struggled with. What about starting things and not finishing things? Ouch. Yeah, that's a big one, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I started and stopped so many different projects and didn't actually end up finishing them. Allowing distractions to exist in your life, allowing a lower standard to exist in your life. If people aren't treating you well, or if you're allowing certain things to exist, certain situations to exist in your life, and you're just letting it happen, what you allow will continue. Not rewarding yourself, not giving yourself any downtime. And this is what happens when I see people who literally work 7 days a week. They will work Sunday through Sunday, never giving themselves any time, and they end up becoming like the drunk guy at the party that thinks his jokes are all funny. And like you're working so much, and you're never giving yourself a break. You're never giving yourself actual rest, because rest is an important part of actual work. Part of rest is recharging. So when you come and you after you have rested and you are now refreshed and you look at something from a different perspective, all of a sudden it looks much easier versus just working 18, 20 hours at a stretch, sleeping for a couple of hours and then getting right back into it, not really being fully recharged. You're kidding yourself. How about fear of failure or fear of success? This is another one that I have struggled with. Having a fear of failure or a fear of success. Good evening. Lundvig? Or Lindy. It's good to see you. I'm assuming you are overseas. Let me know where you're from. So a fear of failure or a fear of success. A fear of failure is actually related to a fear of ridicule, if you think about it, right? Like if you did something and failed and no one knew, would you really care? Or how about a fear of success? Whereas a fear of success is often related to a fear of loss, where it's easier to never have something than to have it and to lose it. That's a fear of success. Or false arrogance, telling yourself that everything is great, rescuing other people from the situations that they created. Ask me how I know. This is especially emotionally rescuing people. I do that. I would do that all the time, and I still do it if I'm not careful. Nitpicking or picking fights or needing to be right, complaining all the time, thinking that I've arrived. Oh, I've read all the books I ever need to read. Thank God I never have to read anything more. Yeah, I used to think that. Last year I read 42 books. The year before that I read 41. And I'm on pace right now, probably around 35. I'm a little bit off pace just because I'm in a PhD program this year. So, and that pace will continue but I'm thinking that I've arrived is one of the most toxic thing I could ever do is self-sabotage. Gossiping or comparison, constantly tearing yourself down, not taking ownership of things, being consistently late and missing deadlines, flying by the seat of your pants, not following through on commitments, and having a bad relationship with money, and about 12,000 other things. I can go on and on and on. But the point of all this stuff is all of this stuff, all of these self-sabotaging behaviors, all of it disrupts your ability to grow or scale your business. Sorry, I got misspelled out. But the important thing here is to take 100% ownership of all of this stuff. You have to take 100% ownership of your actions and your activities. Otherwise, if you don't see yourself as part of the problem, there is absolutely no way in the world you're going to see yourself as part of the solution. So that is when we get into the heart of what we're talking about and starting to change all of this and how to think strategically and to take charge of not only your business, but also your entire life. So this is the basis of the strategic business growth multiplier. And there's a couple of things. There are just three main elements that we're going to get into around this. And this is around, first and foremost, around the systems function of your business. Then we're going to get into the psychology of your business. So it's about systems and psychology. It's an S&P approach, S&P, systems and psychology. And the last of these is the four core functions. And this has to be true in every single business. No matter what business that you're in, you have to have all four functions. So as we take this business approach, again, we're looking at systems and psychology. We'll start in systems. So everything, like I mentioned, that's around the Viper framework, the Viper methodology, is in the book, The Time Wealth, The Advantage. All of this, by the way, is also in the community, which I'll talk about the school community here on and off, not just because, I mean, yes, if it's interesting to you and you'd like to join it, I will tell you how to do that at the end. But just because I want to let you know that other people have learned this framework. Literally dozens and dozens and dozens of people have learned this framework and are employing it in their businesses. And once they've learned it, how to apply it in their one business, if they want to start another business, they can apply this same framework within that other business as well. This framework works because it's strategic. It's a strategic approach. It's a top-down approach, not just you start out and then you learn this tactic and learn this other tactic, and all of a sudden you got a whole pile of tactics and a bag full of tricks that you don't necessarily know that all of these things are actually going to work seamlessly together, and many times they don't. So this is why you want to look and create a strategic approach. That way you can apply it to any business when you're getting started. So again, for those of you who are just joining me, please let me know where you're at and what line of work that you're in. So let's get to the Viper framework. The Viper framework stands for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. So let's get started on vision. Vision is the main premise of all of this. And vision has two components. It's got personal vision and it's got business vision. These main elements, you cannot skip these. And you cannot skip and just say, well, it's all about business vision or it's all about personal vision. Many business plans are all about business vision and they give no consideration at all to personal vision. There are other frameworks of business frameworks that only talk about business vision. And I'm telling you that if you don't consider your personal vision, you're at a distinct loss, because that's what's going to end up happening is your business vision ends up becoming your personal vision. But your personal vision is basically, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go in life? Like Couture, where do you want to go in life? Yokeling, where do you want to go in life? Linby, where do you want to go in life? What do you want your life to look like if it wasn't defined by income generation? If your job description wasn't also a life description, okay? So Ingrid, like same thing for you. Like, what do you want your life to look like? Let's say if you woke up with $30 million or 30 million pounds or 30 million euro in your bank account tomorrow, okay, fine, go and buy some cool stuff. But from a day-to-day perspective, what would that look like? And that's not a lot of money. I mean, yes, it's a lot of money, but you can burn through it pretty quickly if you're not a good steward of money. So it's really important to start to consider what your day-to-day life would look like if it wasn't defined by income generation. So next, after you have defined your personal vision, then you start giving some consideration to a business vision. Once you define where you want to go, what you want your life to look like, then you start thinking about your business vision. Your business vision is like, cool, that's where you want to go? Cool, how are we going to get there? That answers that question. And when you start reverse engineering that business vision that delivers that personal vision, that's how you have time wealth. That's how you have the time wealthy advantage. So there's many times I've sat in seminars and conferences, even different masterminds, where the people that were sitting to my left or to my right were legitimately making 6 and 7 figures a month. And at the time I was like, okay, I mean, and I did well. Like, I mean, I was in the right room, but you know, some of these people were making 7 figures a month. They'd been making that for a really long time. And I also happen to know that many of them, not all of them, but many of them, they had a complete disaster going on at home. They weren't connected to their spouse. They didn't really have any relationship with their children whatsoever. And you know what they were most worried about? An extra comma in their bank account. That's the thing that they were most worried about. And I was like, man, are you kidding me? And what they had effectively done is they created a business vision that became their personal vision. They didn't have any concept of what their personal vision would look like. And the danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you that sucks. I spent the better part of almost 2 decades chasing that dragon. And man, now that I've defined the personal vision that I want, the business vision delivers that for me. My business delivers that lifestyle for me. So I'm just letting you know you can have this. You can have these things that you want. Many of you could probably have a lot of these things now. Not everything. And certainly, this isn't about playing small by any stretch. This is about focusing first and foremost on that personal vision and allowing that business vision to deliver that for you. So when you're looking at this personal vision, and we're just gonna talk about this for another minute, and then we'll put the fries in the bag, and the rest of today is going to be about business and business vision. But the personal vision, one way that you can start to think about that is to craft a 100th birthday speech. So let's say that you're turning 100 years old, okay, and you're turning 100 years old, and what would you say to the people in the room? What would be the message that you would want them to carry out beyond that day? Like they left the room and that was the legacy that you would be hoping to pass along. Think about that. And if 100th birthday speech, like you're turning 100 years old and you're thinking like, well, I don't know, like I'm 25, man, I can't think of who I would want in the room or whatever. I mean, okay, fine. Well, what about your next milestone? Maybe your 40th birthday, or maybe when your kids turn 18 or something along those lines. What would you want that to look like? Who would you want in the room? What would you say? What would be the legacy that you'd pass on? What are just some basic things that you look forward to? That would be a great way to start your personal vision, or even some relationships that you put in that you would want. Or what are some things that you've always wanted to try? Like think about that. Think about that when you're crafting your personal vision. So again, when you're looks at you when we're thinking and considering your vision, again, it's got that personal vision and business vision. And when you're defining business vision is always defined with 3 C's, and that is your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar. Now, before I go on, whenever I get hired as a strategist or a fractional CSO, which is a chief strategic officer, or anything along those lines, when I'm being brought in to an organization and they're asking me, what my capabilities are and what it is that I do, and a strategist is a very top down, a very systemic type thinking. So you're looking at all different aspects of the organism, if you will, right? So if someone has a fever and they've got an infection in their leg, and it's a pretty bad looking infection, and you're like, hey dude, you've got an infection and that's probably what's causing your fever. That's systemic thinking, right? It looks in between the different systems to see the interaction, the interplay that's going on. And that takes a particular type of skills, right? The different skill set. And that's the main difference between a business coach and a strategist. So when I'm operating as a strategist, which is what I do, I'm looking at these 3 key functions, because these 3 key functions right here, anytime I'm looking and I'm using these things as a diagnostic tool, when I'm looking at these 3 things and I'm looking for different elements of like, oh, you have people that are not getting along in your organization. You have lots of turnover in your organization. You have trouble attracting the right customers to your organization, or you have lots of turnover with your customers. You can't keep customers. Once you get them in, you can't keep them in your organization, or you're just flat struggling in profitability, and any number of other things that go on. Whenever those things exist, it's almost always one of these 3 C's, or multiple of these things are not well identified. They're not defined. There's usually holes somewhere along these 3 C's. So I'm just letting you know that you can pay attention to these things. You can talk and say it's a bunch of hooey, but every time I've walked into a business that has dysfunction, it's because one of these 3 C's is out of kilter. Okay, so let's get into the 3 C's of business vision. This is what helps define your DNA. This is what helps you get real clarity in your business. And that, the first and foremost, is the core purpose. A basic question to ask there is, what business are you in and what problems do you specifically solve? And it's really important that you get really specific in that. And this is one of the things that I work probably mostly on with people in strategic boardroom, is because they think that they know what their core purpose is until they really get challenged on it. And being challenged on that is important to do it in a safe place, rather than when you're spending lots of money trying to get traction in your business and you're not getting it and you don't know why. You're like, I don't understand why I'm not getting traction in your business. I'm like, well, what do you do? Tell me about your business. And they can't articulate that very clearly. And I'm not even talking about an elevator pitch. I'm just saying, what do you do? Well, we do a lot of things. That doesn't help me. Okay, well, we're in marketing. Okay, what do you do in marketing? Do you build websites? Well, no, I mean, we can. Okay, that doesn't help me much. And this goes on and on and on. So I'm just saying that when you're really clear in your core purpose and you're really specific in your answers, again, when I ask someone and say, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm in real estate. That doesn't tell me much. But if someone says, oh, I'm a residential realtor on the south side of Miami and I like working in these three school districts, okay, that tells me a lot more. And that tells me that they're probably really serious and they're probably a professional because they really know what they are and they're a little obnoxious about what they won't do. Think of like a car mechanic that works on passenger rated vehicles. They'll replace headlights and they'll replace wiper blades and tail lights and do tune-ups and serpentine belts and brake jobs and things like that. Will they work on dump trucks? Probably not. Will they work on lawnmowers? Probably not, because they can't charge enough to make it worth their while. Would they do transmission work? Probably not, because it's highly specialized within most vehicles. So these are the sorts of things where you kind of are obnoxious about what you do and a little obnoxious about what you won't do. And that's important to be really specific about your core purpose. Next is your core values. And this is about what matters to you about this business and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business. And anytime I do this in a live event, I almost always in the back of the room see the collective eyeballs roll because they're like, oh, here comes the squishy stuff. And that, yeah, that's fine. You can call it squishy stuff if you want, but most of the businesses that I have ever been in that have a really strong company culture and a very, very healthy company culture have a defined set of core values. Do it or don't do it. It does not impact my life one bit, but it absolutely can change yours. Because when you have a company that has a defined set of core values, now everybody in there has a true north to operate around when you're not there. And for the companies that don't have a set of core values identified, here's the problem. The company culture is identified, and it's usually dictated by the strongest personality that's in the room. That's the problem. So when you have a strong set of core values, you might be thinking, well, what does that even sound like? Well, you operate with a set of core values, right? When something matters to you so much that you're willing to get up off the couch and go act on it, right? If someone like breaks in your house and threatens your family, yeah, you're probably ready to go to war because it's a core value to keep your family safe. So this is what I'm saying. Like it's upon that framework. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot more time to get into that, but this is one of those things where you also spend a lot of time in strategic boardroom really diving into the core values and how to actually define these things. And I've seen other I don't know, exercises where they come up with a list of like 100 core values and then like circle the top 20 and then boil that list down to like a top 5 and that's your core values. Man, I don't like that approach because I think it misses some really key elements. And let's face it, you may have core values that are not on that list. So that's why I really don't like that. But anyway, so that's also defining core values. And core values are what helps determine a company culture. And the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. The company culture is what's experienced by people inside the organization. The company brand is what's experienced by people outside the organization. So core values are extremely important to the DNA of your company. We talked core purpose, we talked core values. Next is client avatar. Client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? Who are these people? And you have to know them geographically, demographically, and psychographically. Think about where they are, not just physically in the world, but are they online? Like, where do you get them? How do you reach them? Geographics is important. Demographics is who they are. Are they married, single, rich, poor? Do they have kids, no kids, so on and so forth. And their psychographics. And their psychographics are how they think and how they buy. And you can think of this in terms of ALIA, A-L-I-A, their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations. And really delving deep in terms of all these things. And you start understanding, okay, how do I really understand their attitudes? How do I really know what their lifestyles are? And you really start to ask your question around their interests and their aspirations and goals and why these things are particularly important to them. And once you understand their aspirations, their attitudes, their lifestyles, it's much easier for you to reach them in your marketing. So this is what's really compelling as you really start to think about this stuff in advance. And all of these things, the core purpose, the core values, and the client avatar are really, really critical to the DNA of your company. So here's what I want you to do. Okay, you don't need to put it in the chat if you don't want to. I'm not here to publicly shame anybody. But if you want to, you can. But from a 1 to a 10, in each of these 3 areas, which means you're going to give yourself 3 ratings from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst to 10 being the best. Where are you at in each of these areas? Like 1 to 10, where's your core purpose? right? 1 to 10, where's your core values? 1 to 10, how well is your client avatar defined? And I will tell you this, you can't give yourself more than a 5 if they're not written down. And why is that? Because you may think that you know them today, and in 6 months I'll ask you the same thing and it'll be absolutely different. That's just the way it works. And the people who fight me on this, they're the ones who are struggling. So do it or don't do it. Like I said, this is what really changes people's lives. And this is why I'm saying, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm just saying, like, most of the time, 90% or plus of people, they will go through this webinar and they get a lot of information, and I check in back with them in several weeks or a month or more. And because they didn't pay anything for it, I think that's just the way it goes, nothing changes. Very few of people's lives change because they've gone through it. So I'm just saying, like, this is where you actually have to dial in and say, no, this is something I'm really going to do. So this is the personal vision and business vision. That's the vision component of the business. This will start to go pick up a little bit in pace. So infrastructure is the bones of the business. That's the things like your desks and your chairs and your software and things like that, your websites. And it's really important and critical component of your business. But you might be thinking, if it's so critical, then why does vision come first? Because it spells Viper better? No, the reason that vision comes first is because you're going to be building an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision. So let's say, for argument's sake, that Ingrid is or Katura is, let's say that their vision is to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on their belly. Okay? If they build an infrastructure that's going to require them to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrible experience for them when they're trying to lay on the beach rubbing cocoa butter on their belly. So that's why vision comes first. You're building that infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision for the future, that's going to stay in alignment with that vision for the future. So that is the vision and the infrastructure. Let's look at the process. Process is simply how you do stuff. How you do stuff from a day-to-day perspective, and from a tactical day-to-day perspective, and from a strategic perspective, long-term. So let's first look at tactical. Tactical is basically how you do stuff from your day-to-day perspective, your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, your checklist items, and even your day-to-day activities, from opening procedures, your closing procedures, how you answer the phone, how you prepare bank deposits, and things like that. So when you if I drew a box around infrastructure and process, right, that's the system. That's the system. For those of you people who are like, oh, I'm all about systems and processes. For you, all of you who are on systems and processes, that's your system. That's great. Except this system needs to be driven in some strategic direction, because let's look at this system like a ship or a battleship. Well, you don't want to leave that battleship just moored to the harbor, right? The battleships are not meant to be moored to the harbor. They're meant to be taken out into open sea. So when you go and you take this battleship, well, that's about driving that battleship out in a strategic direction. Otherwise, with that battleship moored to the harbor, you're going to be open to whatever economic winds happen to blow across the harbor, right? So you need to be strategic in what you're doing with that system, and that takes driving it in a very specific direction, and that takes strategic planning. So in the strategic planning part of the process, the tactical stuff was day to day. The strategic planning is long term. Where are we going to go and drive this thing, not just day to day, but now we're taking it out of the harbor. So when you're looking at strategic planning, it takes 3 P's: people, purpose, and promotion. So when you're thinking about the people in your strategic plan, generally, and not always, but generally, the strategic planning almost always involves marketing or lead generation or something around that function, right? Usually it's around driving it towards a very strategic purpose, okay? We'll get to purpose here in a second. But generally, when you're attracting people because to affect the strategic plan, you're generally trying to either attract a new market, new avatar. Maybe it's a subsection of the people that you were thinking about in the 3 C's of business vision, your client avatar, right? So who is the client avatar that you're necessarily trying to attract? Well, maybe normally you would like attracting married couples. I tend to work with married couples who are in business for themselves, who have kids at home, who are extremely busy, right? Like that's generally where they are, right? And generally under 20 employees. So if, let's say for argument's sake, that I was going to carve off a certain segment of that and just say, well, I'm going to go after single men, right, as part of my avatar, okay? So unmarried men that don't have any kids. Okay, so again, that's carving off a piece of the avatar that doesn't necessarily fit the entire avatar. Okay, so those are the people that I'm going after. But my point is that I'm defining who these people are. I'm also defining the people who are maybe represent a skill set that I don't have. Maybe again, when we talk about the four core functions of business, we're going to be talking about lead generation and sales and operations and accounting. And maybe I just suck at accounting and I'm not trying to learn to be an accountant. So I'm going to hire that out. So who are the people that I'm going to need when I start thinking of my strategic planning? Maybe I'm thinking about a new vendor relationship. Maybe I'm thinking about a new subcontractor relationship, something along those lines. Maybe I need to hire more people. But who are the people? What's the people component, both from an avatar perspective, from a target market perspective, and also from the people inside my organization that I'm going to need? Who are the people that I need? The next is purpose. And when you think about the purpose, what's the purpose of the strategic plan? So this is about, are we trying to gain market share? Are we trying to launch a new product, launch a new service, or launch into an entirely new market altogether? Either way, what's the purpose of this? And this is why it's really important to have your purpose to align with your core purpose of your 3 C's of business vision. Again, we talked about that in people. Your people have to align with your client avatar, and your purpose has to align with your core purpose. The reason for that is because, look, many of you business owners and entrepreneurs have lots of ideas every time you get out of the shower. And every time you get out of the shower, you have a new business idea. You're like, hey, honey, we're going into the oil business. And you're like, oh my gosh, really? Like, are we doing this idea today or the 17 that you came up with last week? So the reason for this is because you want to make sure that your strategic purpose is in alignment with your core purpose. Otherwise, you're going to get that shiny object syndrome and chasing every idea that comes along. Okay? And I speak to a lot of different people who love to wear that badge of honor like I'm a serial entrepreneur. And really all they've done is created 17 different jobs. They're not really a serial entrepreneur. They've got 17 different jobs and they're not doing any of them well because they're so fragmented. If they focused on one, they'd probably be a billionaire, right? But the problem is they're focusing on too many. They're trying to chase too many rabbits, so they end up catching none. The last one of this is promotion. So promotion is really around, it's just communicating. It's doing it often. Okay. So imagine that everyone in your life is suddenly replaced by a 16-year-old teenager. Okay. You're probably going to be repeating yourself a lot of times, right? And I say that somewhat tongue in cheek. I'm sure, there's certainly great teenagers out there, but we've raised 2 so far and we had to we have to say things an awful lot of times. But again, it's just about promoting and not just saying something once, but saying it over and over and over again, not just externally to your client avatar or whoever it is that you're trying to promote to, but also internally. You have to say things internally a lot. And usually it's because business owners are their own worst enemies, where they come in, they share with the staff the newest and latest idea that they have, and with really no follow through. So they have to make sure if this really is the thing, it's written down and it's going to be followed through to the end of time until you either hit your goal or it makes sense to do a strategic pivot, but not until then. So that's why that promotional piece is so important. So we talked about process in terms of both tactical and strategic, and this is the Viper framework, guys. We are talking about the strategic business growth multiplier. So all of these things we're putting in place, we're starting to put the pieces of the puzzle, we're starting to put the framework together so we can really truly grow something really, really well. So now we get into the execution component. The execution component, this is where General Patton talks about having a good plan. And a good plan violently executed now is better than the perfect plan executed next week. This is where, remember when I talked about seeking perfection as one of those self-sabotaging behaviors? Like once it's absolutely perfect, then we can roll it out. Look, the perfect plan doesn't really ever exist. Even if it did, usually it's execution that makes the plan good or not. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and the reason that this even has a spot in the Viper framework, is because most plans fall apart in execution. And the reason for that is because many business owners have way too many priorities on their to-do list. And having too many priorities has the same impact as having no priorities. And that's why I start to allocate my priorities into something called a daily 5. The daily 5 are up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take, which will move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan. One of the two. And I would say daily 5, really, for me, it's daily 3. I like a daily 3. And again, I'm not talking about checking your voicemail. I'm not talking about checking your email. I'm talking about needle moving activities toward your strategic plan or your vision. One of those two things. And if it's not a needle moving activity, it doesn't mean that it doesn't belong on a list somewhere or a to-do list, but it's not a daily 5 action. So this is why you get like this today, right here. This webinar is one of my daily 5. So that's what I'm saying. This is a needle moving activity for me. I get a lot of people, I get exposed to a lot of people on this and let them know what I'm about. I teach them about the Viper framework. I teach them about the time wealthy advantage, what's in the time wealthy advantage. And some people want to work with me. Most don't, but that's okay. I'm not looking for everybody. I'm looking for a select few people. In fact, I'm getting too busy now to start taking a lot of people. I have to be a little bit more discerning and start to take on jobs that are a little bit more interesting to me and probably pay a little bit better, right? I mean, it's not that I need the money. I mean, like I said, most of my money comes from real estate, but once I start being a little bit more discerning, and that's something I would recommend for you, is that when you really stop letting everybody think that they can buy from you at any time, that's also a really good way to start getting and making a lot more money and being much busier with the type of client that you want to work with. But this is what I'm talking about in terms of execution. The last component is reporting. So when you're actually taking the time to measure your reporting, you're measuring your lead metrics and you're measuring your lag metrics. Your lead metrics are just based on your actions and activities. That's all it is. You're just measuring your actions and activities. That's all. So the lag metrics are the results of those actions and activities. Now, what do you have more control over? Your actions and activities or your results? No, you don't really have any control over your results. You don't have any real control over how many sales you get or how many booked appointments you get. You only have control over your actions and activities. So I'm telling you that when you're tracking things, you absolutely positively also need to be making sure that you're tracking your actions and your activities. And if you're not, again, you'll have no idea at the end of the month. You're like, well, I did a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I don't seem to be getting anywhere. Okay, show me what you did. Show me your metrics. Show me your numbers. And if you can't show me that, I won't know how to help you. And most people won't. And if you have a coach that you're working with, encourage them. Many of them should be doing this automatically. But if this is something that you're really wanting to work towards, then find a mechanism so you can start measuring this stuff. Because what happens if the coach goes away? They shouldn't necessarily be holding you accountable to that. They should be holding you accountable to make sure that you're tracking your metrics, though, especially your lead metrics, because that's what you can control. So that's the Viper framework. So again, remember, this whole framework is how you set up and manage a business. And this is something that this couple I've worked with for quite a while, Brian and Kara, they have used this for in various businesses that they've been in. And Brian owns a series of coffee shops up in Northeast Indiana. And he also got into the rental business, and he's got a small campground. So, and he uses that Viper framework, that vision, that infrastructure, that process. He builds that out every single time he opens and starts a new business. So that's what I'm saying. It translates to any small business. And it was really cool when he was using it in his coffee shops, because not only does he get a lot more free time, he makes a lot more money to the point where his bride, Kara, who's a dental hygienist, was able to shift her hours from full-time to part-time, and she spends a lot more time with her kids who in the summertime. So all because they stopped focusing on business and career vision first and put their personal vision first. So now that business vision funds their personal vision. So that is the systems component. That's the Viper framework. So let's look at the psychology side of business. So when you're looking at systems, again, systems are great, systems are important, systems are necessary, but systems will only get you so far, because systems, right, I mean, they're perfect for stability and consistency and accountability, but they are limited around making subjective decisions. That's not what they're great at. They're not great for adapting to market changes, especially rapid market changes, or coming up with creative solutions, or even maintaining human connections. It's like, I mean, maintaining maybe, but initiating, not really. And even as good as AI is, people they're not trying to have a relationship with a robot. They are trying to have a relationship with a human. So again, when you're looking at the business approach, we looked at systems. Now we're going to talk about psychology. So in the psychology side of things, we're looking at both the personal and individual psychology as well as business and organizational psychology. So in personal and individual psychology, you're looking at things like self-worth and self-management, limiting beliefs, and even things like emotional intelligence. And when you're looking at your business and organizational psychology, you're looking at things like external psychology and internal psychology. Let me pull over and park here real quick, and we're going to talk about personal psychology for just a hot second. When you're looking at personal and individual psychology, again, you're looking at things like personal, your self-image, your self-worth, your self-management, your limiting beliefs, and all of those different things. And when you start to think about all of those self-sabotaging behaviors that we talked about a little bit ago, where we're talking about procrastinating and seeking perfection and setting impossible standards and not starting things and not finishing things, having a fear of failure, having a fear of success, rescuing other people, complaining, not tearing yourself down all the time, not taking ownership, being consistently late and having a bad relationship with time and having a bad relationship with money, all of that stuff, that relates to personal and individual psychology. And this is stuff that we have to continually work on. And again, I have to continually work on this too. And this is why one of the main premise within Strategic Boardroom is working on this individual and personal psychology. In fact, I've got a mastermind coming up in June where we have the inner circle members, and many times we're talking probably just as much about business as we are personal stuff, because we got to get it flushed out. Because remember, our businesses are just an extension of ourselves. That's why when I was talking about core values, your business is just an extension of you. So when you're bringing head trash into your business, it's coming from you. It's not magically just appearing, right? If you're bringing a bad relationship with money into your business, do you think the business is magically going to fix that? Generally not. Generally, when I see a business struggling and I start looking through the things and I start seeing that they're using their business credit card for all sorts of personal expenses, because they're like, well, I have no choice. I have to buy milk and bread. And I'm like, oh, and apparently spend $400 at Victoria's Secret as well, right? Like all of these different things. I'm just telling you, meanwhile, they're struggling. They can't pay their bills, but they're driving around in a Lincoln Navigator, and they've got two of them. So that's why I'm saying, like, all of these different things, you have to start to recognize that when you're bringing that individual psychology into your business, it can cause a real problem for your business. So when you're looking into business psychology, we're looking at things like external and internal. And you're looking at things from an external perspective, which is your buying psychology, vendor psychology, which is really more related to like negotiations and things like that, and even things like politics. Because I'm telling you, when you start attracting and you start doing things in your neighborhood or your community, you're going to attract politicians. It's like a moth to a flame. Because they're looking for donors, and man, I'm telling you, and I have so this is my actual office. Like, I have an office building. I don't work out of my home. My home's about 5 or 6 minutes away though. So where my office building is at, it sits on a main street, one of the main streets in my town. And this town's about 150,000 people. So it's a pretty good sized little city here in Lafayette, Indiana. And where I'm at, I have probably, I don't even know, the location where there's about 50,000 cars every day drive past my location. So guess what? Many politicians want to stick their signs in my yard. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that, because I don't need that. I just don't want to attract that sort of thing. I will support them, behind the scenes, but I'm not doing that, right? So I'm just letting you know that is something that you should be prepared for. Internally, you're looking at things like, when it comes to internal psychology, you're looking at things like management and leadership. And when you're looking at things like that, I want to spend a few minutes on leadership. Now, right now, I am in a PhD program for organizational psychology. I'm trying to get my PhD. And as I've gone through the classes so far, and I'm looking at the different things that they're continuing to bring up, like change management and things around leadership. And whenever they bring up leadership, I'm always looking through the lens to see if these things are there. And whenever I have seen leadership traits, and I'm saying there's lots of leadership traits that are important, but if these three are missing, you are not effective, and you may not even know why. And those three things are trust, vision, and communication. And the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because it's so critical. And this is stuff that most business owners just are not natural leaders. Sometimes they are, but it's pretty rare. And the reason why is because like you may have an ability for people to follow you, right? But they don't inherently trust you. They'll follow you because of what you can do for them, but that's not really a leader. That's really just kind of you're attracting a tribe of people who are just kind of leeches. But true leadership, especially a strategic leader, this is someone who can create trust with people. Let's say that you, for example, that you didn't have their trust though, but you had a strong vision for the future and you're an amazing communicator. Look, people will they'll follow you. They'll be like, okay, cool, I understand his vision and he's a great communicator, but I don't trust him. They're not gonna follow you. They're not going to follow you, and you may not know why. Let's say, for argument's sake, they do trust you though, and you're again an excellent communicator. So they trust you, but they really don't know where they're going or why they're even doing it because the vision isn't either clear or it's because you came down and handed it down like Moses on stone tablets. So I'm just saying, like, that vision means that you've had a shared vision, that you've had communication with them. You let them know why the vision is what it is and how and you've enrolled them into that vision. What about the last piece, which is communication? Let's say they trust you, they know where they're going, but you're a horrible and ineffective communicator. You don't do it. You basically type in all caps, or you give one word responses in your emails, or you just don't communicate often enough, or you communicate like you're communicating through a megaphone and not a telephone. Do you understand the difference? That's important because people want to feel like they've at least been heard. So that's about effective communication. So I'm just telling you, are there other leadership traits? Absolutely. When I was in the Marine Corps, they literally beat into us the 15 different leadership traits of justice and judgment and decisiveness, integrity, tact, initiative, dependability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All I'm saying is, like, whether all the different areas of bearing and unselfishness, courage, knowledge, loyalty, enthusiasm, all these different elements of leadership traits, and there's probably a dozen more, but all these different leadership traits won't matter. They won't matter as much if you don't have these three. I'm just telling you. So does leadership really matter that much? Yes, it absolutely does matter, because as I'm writing Leader Boss is my next book. That'll be my 9th book. But this is really where it comes down to compassion versus candor, right? Caring versus candor. And when you have compassion, this is where, if you have too much compassion and not enough candor, candor is where you really tell people what they need to hear. Compassion is really having that understanding for that person as a human being. But if you have caring and compassion and no candor, people will walk all over you as a boss. You're like, man, I'm just too nice. I don't know what happens. Yeah, you're too nice. And then because you're too nice, people walk all over you. Or if you have too much candor and not enough compassion, what ends up happening is people treat you like you're a tyrant, and you become very legalistic, and you start having to rely on all the rules and laws and everything that you create inside your organization. Hey, next time you show up late, I'm going to write you up. And you're like, really? Like, everything becomes a rule. So this is how you can start to check on your own effectiveness as a leader. One of the things that I noticed, and Jim Collins and Morton Hansen wrote this book, Great by Choice. But Jim Collins, he's written lots of different books. Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last. He also, but this level 5 leader is something that John Maxwell also talked about. But basically, the level 5 leader, they define them in different ways. But the level 5 leader is someone who basically puts the organization before themselves. They don't look for glory. They're always thinking about their people. They're always thinking about their organization first. So this level 5 leader, these are outstanding leaders in their fields. These level 5 leaders represent companies who are significantly more profitable. They grew much faster. They had a much stronger company culture. And guess what also they had? A defined set of core values. No kidding. It keeps coming around like a bad penny, right? Like, I'm just telling you that these things are all very critical. And if you look at this little chart, this is something that I pulled out of Built Great by Choice. But if you look at investing $1,000 in Amgen versus $1,000 in the stock market, you would have made 24 times more money by investing in Amgen because of their leadership. And they have other things going for them, but so did Intel and Microsoft and Southwest. Their leadership was phenomenal. And the 100 best places to work list frequently represents the highest stock returns. And the reality is it's because of their leadership. So leadership does make a huge difference. And if you're looking to grow your business, Growth necessitates change. It requires things to be different. And leadership is what manages that change. And if you're asking yourself the question, how do I get my people to care as much as I do? Man, I just feel I should be much further along in my business. Look, it could be a function of your leadership, not just the systems component. Systems are important, but systems are not what's going to grow your business. What is, I mean, not directly, but what I'm saying is the leader is what helps grow, and the speed of the leader is the speed of your team. So if you're the leader, think of yourself as the guide, and you're leading them up the mountain. The team can't go on ahead of you because they don't know where to go. You are driving the pace. You're the one setting the pace. You're the one driving the direction, setting the direction. All of that stuff is around the speed of the leader. So again, the team cannot outpace the leader. Otherwise, you're going to end up holding them back. So this is something else you have to consider is how are you working and developing your leadership when it comes to your business leadership? And this is the systems and psychology approach. The last part of this is the 4 core functions of business. We're going to do this and then we'll put the fries in the bag. So the 4 core functions of business are around lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your business happens in this order. First, they experience your lead generation through your marketing, your networking, some sort of joint venture, something. Then, because that window's been opened, that opportunity's been opened, they raise their hand for whatever reason. Now they're sitting in front of you, and now the sales function steps into play. And the sales function really just closes the loop. It just closes the conversation, closes the sale, and hands that over to the operations and fulfillment function. Then, once that's done, then it goes to the accounting function where the money is handled, right? I'm assuming you want to get paid. That's what happens. And I'm assuming your vendors want to get paid, and that's where that happens. So when you're looking at the 4 core functions of business, when it comes to lead generation, this is where you're starting to target your client avatar. Again, we talked about that in the 3 C's of business vision. And when you have your target avatar well defined, you know exactly who it is that you want to work with, and it's so much easier for you to direct your marketing towards them. And these are the people that are going to bring the most amount of money and bring the least amount of drama. And I don't know about you, but in my 50s, man, I am about lowering the amount of drama in my life, not increasing it. So when you're looking at the four core functions of business, the 15 reasons why people buy, this list right here, it is so incredibly important. I'll take myself down for a hot second so you guys can maybe take a screenshot of it. But sorry, I'm getting a sip of water there. But when you're looking at the 15 reasons why people buy, I want you to start thinking about why are they going to want to buy from you? Can you help them directly or indirectly make money or save time, avoid effort, escaping pain, physical pain, emotional pain, right? Spiritual pain. How can you give them more comfort? How can you give them better health, which could be in the form of less stress? Remember, we're thinking directly or indirectly. And I can promise you, you can come up with 10 reasons under each of these categories for how you can help them and your product or service can help them. Again, it could be maybe a little bit goofy answers, but come up with 10 under each of these categories. How do you help them feel more love or gain praise or increase their status with their tribe? People will buy for truth, especially if they felt lied to in the past. They will buy for growth in their knowledge and their faith and their wellness. They will buy for growth. They will buy for novelty. Heck, they just buy something because it's new. Right? Think of the people who stand in line for hours to get the latest iPhone 71 iteration. They will buy to be in more control or get more perceived control or more certainty. And they will also buy to be in contribution to other people. So all of these reasons are why people will buy. And once you understand why they're going to want to buy from you, it's going to be tremendously easier for you to market to them and for you to sell to them. But again, do the exercise or don't do the exercise. But whenever I do this exercise, I mean, how do you think I come up with that list of all those self-sabotaging behaviors? And whenever I do those self-sabotaging behaviors in front of a room of entrepreneurs and business owners, by the end of that list, I have every single person in the room slowly nodding. And I'm like, can anybody relate to any of these or all of these? And every single hand in the room goes up. And because I've spent so much time reading and researching and understanding my client avatar. And again, you cannot get around this without doing that. So the 4 core functions of business, when it comes to lead generation, everything needs to point and support your lead generation function. Because the truth is you might have the most amazing product, the most amazing service. You can have the most efficient business. You can be an absolute paragon of truth and justice and virtue. Your sales technique be so completely dialed in, you can sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. So this is why you can never take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead gen. You just can't. And when your lead generation activities, they come to 60 to 70% of your daily activities. And I'm just saying all of this stuff. I mean, you might be thinking, well, 60 to 70%. If I work 10 hours a day, that means 6 to 7 hours. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. And I'm talking about your calling, your outreach, your emailing, emailing customers, right? Or emailing prospect, not returning an email from someone about your, whatever, some silly thing. I'm talking about specifics on lead generation function. So if you're trying to grow your business, this is the math. This is the math that it takes, and this is a minimum. So if you're looking to grow your business, and this is something that Aaron, who I worked with, he's a fractional CFO, and when he first came to me, he didn't have a business. It was very much an idea. And when we finally got him dialed in on a client avatar, we were deciding between, we went through multiple iterations, which was important in that function. But when he finally narrowed one down, we got him narrowed down between $10 and $30 million contractors as this fractional CFO. And within 6 weeks of him determining that, he signed on 2 clients. And what you're going to see here on this check, that's a $50,000 check that he took a picture and sent to me. So I'm just saying, like, this is absolutely critical, and you have to have this stuff well defined. If you don't, you're just going to continue to wander and you're going to continue to struggle. So the sales function continues the conversation that started by the lead generation function. Remember, if it's not seamless, if it seems like it's very fragmented, you started the lead generation function and the sales function is kind of wonky or just not existent, or you're not following up on your leads, you may as well be literally opening the window and throwing $100 bills out the window, because that's exactly what you're doing when you're not getting back to your leads on time. And most salespeople suck at this. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying they just don't do the thing that's necessary when the leads are coming in. So you have to have a mechanism to make sure that the leads are followed up with, because salespeople will sometimes also embellish the work that they say they're doing and they're not doing. So anyway, understanding that effective selling is about finding solutions. Right now, we just started a 12-week program of it's a 12-week sales essentials, which is really about strategic salesmanship. Salesmanship has gone completely out the window. And when times are really, really good, salesmanship really can be kind of bad and people can still do pretty well. But when things start getting lean or customers start becoming much more discerning, that's when the people who do really well are the ones who understand salesmanship. And that's something that I had to learn. I have a background in accounting, for God's sake. I wasn't a salesman, and I had to learn it because I was not selling well. And I get all these leads and I couldn't close them. And I was like, man, they can do business with me or not, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, for the number of leads that I had coming in, I should have been doing way, way better. And then usually when I'm having conversations, especially in my property management, I don't do it anymore, but in the property management world, I would close somewhere between 70 to 80% of the conversations when people would call me. And they were calling me. I wasn't reaching out to anybody else. So that's how you know you're really dialed in your lead generation and your sales. So generally when the operational function comes in, if you're going to get stuck, you get stuck in the operations function. And you get stuck doing the roofs, the websites, whatever the thing is. The accounting function, if you're going to ignore something, generally this is what gets ignored. And it usually sounds something like this. Well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. And I'm just letting you know, no judgment. I have a degree in accounting and I have said those words. So I am the least qualified person in my business to actually do my bookkeeping because I know I won't do it. That's why I have someone who does my bookkeeping for me. So I'm just letting you know, you cannot ignore your accounting. This is something I go through in the money and finance course, which is, I think tomorrow is financial literacy. Just some basics. It's basically the basics of understanding financials. And this is, again, something we go through a ton in Strategic Boardroom, because if you don't understand your finances, if you don't understand the interrelationship between a balance sheet and an income statement and all the things that matter, and again, I'm not trying to make you into a bookkeeper. You don't need to be a bookkeeper. You just need to understand a balance sheet and income statement so that when your bookkeeper hands you something, you go, That makes sense. Now I understand what it means. Not when your CPA or your bookkeeper hands you something, you go, oh, that looks nice, and you have no clue what you're looking at. It might as well be printed in Mandarin, unless you speak Mandarin. Then it might as well be printed in Greek. My point is that you have to know what it is that at least you're looking at, because you might be getting people that are ripping you off and you would never know. So when you're looking at all four of these things, the lead generation, the sales, the operations, and the accounting, let me ask you something. Are these four functions, are they all the same thing? No, they're not all the same thing. That's why you need, in order to grow, in order to scale, you need to bring other people into your organization. And those people are all going to be aligned in your core values. That's right. Here it comes again. By having your core values defined, they allow you to interview better. They allow you to hire better. They allow you to coach and counsel better. Termination is a heck of a lot easier. And it sets the tone for meetings. It defines your company culture, and it unbelievably raises the amount of personal commitment in your organization. So again, remember, you're not the only person in your organization that will be making decisions. And when you have these core values defined, they become the true north for decisions to be made. So again, you're not the only role model. And when you have these things defined, other people have something to model for themselves. So one other thing I just want to talk about really quickly, and we'll be done here. But if and again, for those of you who are sticking around, we'll talk a little bit. I've got an offer to make for you here, but I'll let you know when that is. So if you're not interested, you can hop off. There won't be any new content. But look, all of this is a difference between growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. If you want to grow by addition, that's where you take on one extra client and an extra client, and then you try to keep, you're doing all this yourself, and you want to keep it because you want to keep your profitability, but because you have a bad relationship with money, you make money and you can't seem to keep it, but you're trying to grow and you don't really, you're struggling with all this stuff. I get it. That's when you're growing by addition. Growing by multiplication is when you start bringing in other people into your organization, and you're now getting them to do the things that you're weak at. So, or the things that they are better at, that you can then allow yourself to have some open bandwidth. So if you really truly want to grow, you have to have the right systems in place. Remember, the systems component of that beginning part, you have to have the right systems in place. You also have to have the right psychology. You have to have the right individual psychology, and you have to have the right leadership. You also have to recognize that your lead generation actions and activities must be 60 to 70% of your working time. So if you're working 12-hour days, that's 7 hours and 15 minutes, give or take, of time that you need to be devoting to your lead generation activities. It's around production, consumption, and promotion. Your promotion time needs to be around 7.25 hours. Your production time is around 3.25 hours, and your consumption time, your consumption is basically where you're having lunch and chilling and reading a book or something along those lines, learning something, that is about an hour and a half. So again, all this stuff is very well structured, and you can do this once you know where your lead generation actions and activities, once you know that allocation and you stick to that allocation. And lastly, you have to hire and develop great leaders and bring other people into your organization that are really, truly ready to grow and grow with you. So that is all I have here. What I want to share with you guys is the this here is the strategic boardroom community on School. And for many of you, I get a lot of people who have they're looking for this. They really see a value in this, but they really don't know where to go for the next thing. They're trying to do all this on their own. Listen, if you are trying to do this and you're trying to do it a little bit faster, you can get there a lot faster with help, right? It stands to reason, right? If you're trying to learn how to be better at karate, it makes sense to hire a black belt. Or if it's even safer if you're trying to learn how to drive and you've never driven before, or if you're learning how to fly and you need a flying instructor. All of these different things, it stands to reason. So not only does it get you where you want to go a lot faster, it also keeps you a lot safer. So you're not flying by the seat of your pants. So if you are interested in something like this and you're looking for a community of like-minded business owners, then I'm just going to show you really quick what this looks like. This is my School community, and I will put that up there in the link right now if you want to check it out. There is a very, hold on one second here. If you are looking for just an entry level, there's a really cheap entry right now, which is just $39 a month, and you can just try it out. All I would ask is just give it a couple of months, give it 3 months. And here's why I'm saying this. If you get in and you decide after 3 months that the thing sucked and it didn't do what I said it was going to do, and your life is not any better, I will 100% refund your money. I have no problem giving people money back if I did not do a good job. So I'm just going to let you know these courses, if you do sign up, they're not completely built out. You won't actually have access to all of them because it's going to start to drip out to you. I don't want you going in and binge watching 90 days worth of material in 2 days. That's not going to be helpful. It's about establishing and creating new habits for you so that when you sign up, you're building these habits day by day. Hopefully, you're doing it at the same time, but whatever workday you decide, I work Monday through Saturday. I take Sundays off. So I would not do this on a Sunday. But if you're going to be doing this and building this out Monday through Saturday, or ideally, if you're, that would be great if you're doing it Monday through Saturday, but or at least taking a day off. But my point is, this will be dripping out to you over time. So if this is interesting to you, I just put the link up on the slide, but in the chat session. But one other quick thing is, there's a couple different components up here. There's a community which kind of works like Reddit, or basically just a blog. So if you look in there, where there's just going to be people that can post in all sorts of different things. They're posting what they have done well. I'm posting content in there. I'm posting all sorts of different stuff in there. But there's also the classroom, and that's what you're seeing on the screen right now, where you're seeing month 1, month 2, month 3, and you'll see the Viper framework. You'll see advanced money and finance course. I'm actually going to upload the book writing course for business owners. So if you're ever interested in learning how to promote and publish your own book, that's going to be in there. There's going to be all sorts of different classroom materials. And also, for those of you who want to sign up for, there is a coaching component, a one-to-one coaching component for a few more dollars if you're interested. But all that is explained in the room. So like I said, if all of this stuff, and right now too, if you look at the bottom right here, you'll just see the strategic salesmanship. You will be also invited into that 12-week session. Just depends on what level that you're buying in at. Regardless of the level you'll buy in at, you'll at least be able to be in the group. If you're wanting one-to-one coaching, then that obviously costs a few dollars more, but that is entirely up to you. So here's what I've got. Go to school.com/strategic boardroom, and that is everything. So thank you all so much for sticking around. I hope this is so very helpful for you. If this has been helpful for you, I would love it. And this is where we part, that's totally fine. I totally respect that. But if you are going into Strategic Boardroom, I'm going to be heading in there in just a few minutes. I got to hop on a quick call in about 7 minutes, but I'm going to hop in there right now. So if anybody signs up and wants to have a chat with me, I can do that really quick. But just letting you know, this is where it's at. Like I said, I will honor the 90-day guarantee if you get in there and you absolutely hate my face and you don't think it was worth every penny. All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and we'll see you guys next time.